Hiring managers, what is the biggest red flag on a resume? I saw some guy who HSD posted in the "Have you been arrested" part put the reason he was arrested: killed a man by dropping a boulder on his head. Checked it out online, and he was telling the truth. Well, at least I respect his honesty. Well, I don't have any boulders in the shop, so I don't think that's relevant. Don't get me wrong, I'd want to know if there's anger or substance abuse issues, but I've worked with felons before. It's generally not a big deal in some blue-collar work. So like, if a person has been arrested in the USA, and they have to put that they have and the reason why for every job application, how is that person ever supposed to get a job and move forward in my life? In Canada they'll sometimes ask for a bare-bones police record search if you're in a position dealing with money, but even then it's not going to list arrests for petty theft or being on probation 10 years ago. It'll list federal crimes you've been convicted of and if there's anything ongoing, but no specifics. I just don't understand a system where a person has to disclose their entire police history including details. It just seems like it's setting up people for failure. Like an ex-drug dealer who has done his time and is just trying to move forward with his life. If he needs to tell every employer he used to sell coke, no one is gonna give the guy a job. So of course he's gonna go back to what he knows to keep his head above water. Like this guy who dropped a boulder on a guy's head, what was he supposed to say? He knows no matter how well he words it or what the rest of his resume looks like, he's not going to get the job if you're asking him that question. Maybe there's something I'm missing, but it just makes absolutely no sense to me. So I'm reading a lot of the same ideas and frustrations over and over here. What is someone supposed to do when they are dealing with a work gap? Do they tell the truth and hope it works out, or do they ignore it and hope to be hired? I had to leave my dream job at the year mark due to health reasons I can't disclose to an employer, and I'd like some direct guidance on what to do in order to be hired again now that I have a better handle on things. Edit. I'm pretty blown away by all of your comments and really solid advice. I hope all benefit from seeing that there are so many of us living through this topic right now and that there are ways back into good, meaningful employment. To the hiring managers and hiring professionals who stop to advise and assist, thank you. Your insight is invaluable at a really hard time for both myself and many others. I have rearranged my resume to be skill-based instead of date-based. I used to list my jobs in the order in which I worked them along with the accompanying dates. But for the last job I applied for, my skills from 2 or 3 jobs ago applied, but my most recent job skills really didn't, and I wanted to front-load the applicable skills. So I rearranged my whole resume to be skill-based. Now I list a type of job I've held, and under that, group all of the skills that I have that apply to that type of job, no matter where I was working at the time I acquired those skills. Then I list another type of job and the associated skills. It's not until the end of my resume that I have a short section summarizing my actual work dates, but by then they've already been front-loaded with my skills. I have MS, so I've had to quit jobs due to illness several times. My resume looks like Swiss cheese, so I explain work gaps by simply saying I moved, my husband was in the military, moving and finding a new job took time. It's not true, but when I quit jobs for medical reasons, I was resigning because my husband was reassigned. We never actually moved. It's hard AF to have a debilitating illness. It's even harder to get a job with a disability, wheelchair user. Yet I totally can tell when the interviewer looks at me and only interviews me to be polite. So much for equal opportunity employer and workplace diversity. But never, I repeat, never share your medical condition to your employer if it isn't obvious. You are instantly labeled as problematic. They can't easily verify if you moved or not. Don't go into details, short basic answers to the questions they ask. I don't feel bad at all because I worked in management and literally watched them throw resumes in the trash for that exact reason. They don't value you as a human being, they don't care about your struggles, so don't feel obligated to disclose so that they could make accommodations or whatever. You're just a thing they use if you're broken. They're just like we aren't a thrift store. I honestly don't understand why work gaps are a problem at all. If you're qualified, you should be eligible to get the job. I hate how our culture is so work-focused, you can't even take a year off to just do something personal. A very unprofessional email is definitely one. You see some insane emails. I knew someone who got an email address that had Big Daddy in it. Edit: for anyone who needs a professional email address, personally I find any combination of your first, middle, last names, initials, and birthdate are all acceptable. In fact, any numbers but 420, 69, etc. and 123 is fine. It's absolutely worth having a very bland email for anything where you don't want your email to make a big impression. Illegal things, professional things, and emailing your grandma because she doesn't like text. Don't email your grandma from your booty slayer email. Edit 2, as some have mentioned below, 666 is also not a great number to add. And if your birthdate happens to be a number on this list, pay special attention to how you format it. For instance, if your birthday is 420, format that along with the year as something like 042099. The person looking at your application will probably understand, and not think it's a joke. Edit 3. I did a bad job typing that. I meant any number but 420, 69. And as somebody added 666, and 123 is fine. I typed that first thing when I woke up with no coffee. Random numbers are okay. 123 is okay. Man, I'm so glad the email I made in 6th grade is just my name and some numbers at the end. Had it for like 6 or 7 years now. Math is hard. I feel old. Edit: lots of old people are gatekeeping. Nostalgia and feeling old isn't restricted to 30+ people, damn. I'm just remarking that it feels so long ago that I was in 6th grade. Does anyone have any advice for the people who have never had a job? Sure. CV. If you're young, you don't really have to defend not having a job before. Everyone has a first job. Related hobby experience and skills are nice. Really depends on the job you're applying. Pizza place? McDonald's. They don't care about skills, they just want warm bodies. Ad designer? Programmer? They care for basically nothing except your skills. Will probably require a portfolio. One-page resume tops. Google example resume/CV and keep looking at them until you figure out what they're there for. Edit: due to several comments, I want to clarify that this is specifically for first jobbers. When you're established it varies, but it's really hard to justify more than one page without any work experience. List major accomplishments and positions of trust. Eagle Scout, student councils, head of a club, leadership positions in hobby groups or non-profit organizations. Referee/organizer for chess club tournaments. Recruiters love that. If you don't have any of those, start thinking about how to get some of those. A lot of colleges will screen you for extracurriculars. Depending on what entry-level job you want, you can pick up a lot of relevant skills. If you've done unofficial work for someone, ask them for a reference. Just list this person's qualifications and phone number/email. Preferably someone with a different last name than you. Send a cover letter as well. Concise, half a page. First paragraph introduce yourself, second paragraph show that you've done research on the company/position and why you'd be a good fit, third paragraph close. Make it look nice and presentable. Google helps a lot with this. Send everything in PDF/printed, no other formats. But have your cover letter also as text in case they want you to send it just via email. Interview. Be presentable. Collared shirt, long skirt/trousers, no flashy colors. Shower. Deodorant. Be on time. Aim to be there 5 to 10 minutes beforehand. Don't schedule it so you have to run and be sweaty and panting when you start the interview. Be prepared to talk about things that are on your CV. Have your CV printed with you for reference. Be polite. Introduce yourself and be patient if necessary. Turn your phone to silent. Don't bring your parents to the building or the interview room. Don't let them call the place before or after. If you stumble, your phone chirps, you spill something or do a similar silly mistake, don't panic. It's fine to be anxious and weirded out, you're in a new situation. Just take a deep breath, apologize and move on. The interviewer doesn't expect you to be perfect, but a calm resolution and moving on is a very, very professional approach and will score you points. Military service, U.S. Army wife, Lieutenant Colonel. Edit, I feel I should clarify. I'm not a hiring manager, this story is from one that I know. I've had experience dealing with dependa, though. The only reason I can see putting anything about a spouse's military service is to explain an employment gap if you move to a foreign base with them. Even that doesn't go under military service. Edit, as others have pointed out, the spouses of officers often fill many roles including volunteer groups. This can and should be included. Just not left as military service. I'm a Navy veteran. I work full-time during the week but I bartend on the weekends for extra cash and because I like punishing myself with 7-day work weeks. Anyways. I recently ran into a woman like this at the bar. We were talking and it came up that I had served somehow. She said she did too. Married 10 years to an army guy who'd been deployed several times. You'd have thought this woman was in the bunker next to him patching his wounds and returning fire. What in the actual fuck? Having been both enlisted and an army wife at separate times. I couldn't even imagine having put my ex-husband's credentials as my own. Listing every single accomplishment from high school and or middle school, when you've been out of high school for 10 plus years. Had a guy list every part he got in a musical play. Sports he played, with scores. Clubs he was a part of. Etc. All of these dated from at least elementary school on. The man was 50 plus. The job had nothing to do with any of these items. In college I had a summer job working as an office assistant, and for the first few days all I did was pull files and shred old resumes. One guy listed every single thing he could do that could possibly count as a clerical skill. He even mentioned stapling. My senior year of college, one of my classes had a small section about resumes where we had to peer review resumes. The one I got had accomplishments from middle/high school, which was weird because this person had done several internships both for the major they were in and also during summer. There was absolutely no reason they needed to pad their resume, especially that far back. I once had a guy submit a resume saying that he could not work with women or speak to any woman due to religious reasons. I'm all for being tolerant of other people's beliefs, but this was for a customer service job. If you can't interact with women at all, then maybe this wasn't the kind of job he should have been applying for. I'm curious what religion he follows. I used to be a receptionist. This guy must have come in for an interview while I was on lunch break, and my male colleague filled in for me. I got back in time to see his two would-be bosses approach him for the interview, one a woman, the other a man. He refused to shake the lady boss hand and would only speak to her through the guy. It was also a customer/client facing position. He did not get the job. Yeah, that's going to be pretty hard with any job. What if he has a female co-worker? He's just going to refuse to work with her? It's even funnier that he was applying for a customer service job, though. A friend of mine was part of a group of managers doing hiring, and they interviewed a guy like this. If she asked him a question, he would answer to the men in the group and not look at her, and he refused to shake her hand. Was apparently very awkward, and he obviously didn't get the job since he would have offended half the employees and clients. My mum had been in a bad car accident, and the doctor in the ER told her he couldn't look at her with her clothes off or touch anything because of his religion. He stood more than a meter away and didn't have a proper look at all. Keep in mind, This doctor was supposed to write down every bruise and anything small that was visible. Apart from it being impossible because completely neglecting that there is a human in shock in front of you, it's also very important for health insurance and everything. My co-worker was training a new hire, pediatric office nurse, and at the end of the day, the trainee mentioned that he doesn't work well with women because they're all too emotional, but we, co-worker and I, seemed cool. It's an all-female office, seriously. All the doctors, medical staff, secretaries, managers, hell even our vaccine rep is female. We occasionally get a male medical student, but they come for like 10 hours a week for a semester. Needless to say, he did not last very long in our office. I don't know how is faring as a nurse in general because it's a female-dominated field. My girlfriend opened the door for a guy that had an interview with her boss. She said hello and tried to shake his hand. He rejected and said he won't touch her due to religious reasons that prohibit him to interact with women. Her boss had the interview with him and told my girlfriend that he is super happy and wants to hire him. My girlfriend told him about the incident from before. He was not hired. Doesn't stop me from hiring anyone, but changes things up when someone says they speak another language. If it's Spanish, you'll be interviewed in Spanish. Sometimes that goes very poorly for the applicant. I actually had that happen to me at a job interview for a tutoring company. Luckily, I actually do speak Spanish. It's certainly not as fluent as my English, but I can communicate well enough. The interview went fine, but it was definitely a surprise. I'd expected a few questions about my experience with the language, but I hadn't expected the interview to actually be in Spanish. I'd imagine this would be a pretty good way to find out who is blatantly lying on their resume, but I would have appreciated a bit of advance notice, haha. I felt pretty unsure about the interview after it was over, but I did end up getting the job. This is exactly why I leave Spanish off my resume. I can read and write and even listen to it just fine still, but my speaking is really limited since I graduated. I learned 6 languages in school in addition to my native English. I can't speak a lick of any of them, just not a language person. I was pushed to include these languages on my resume anyways. Put it on there, went into an interview, and of all the languages they wanted me to speak in, they asked about Latin. I was too terrified to pick up on this. Was a joke to Iron Man 2, when he hires Black Widow, and started fumbling through phrases before the guy stopped me. I was a manager at a trampoline park when I was 16 or 17 and did all the interviews since the majority of the applicants went to the same high school as me. There was a guy that was in his late 30s who had hardly any job experience and a bachelor's degree, IIRC. It was literature related. His age was kinda weird since most the staff were in high school/college, but having a degree completely caught me off guard. Asked him why he wanted to work minimum wage when he had a degree. He explained that he was going to be a teacher but they wouldn't hire him because of his criminal history. He proceeded to tell me he had sexually assaulted a child. He was applying for a job at a kid's trampoline park. Looked on the cameras before he left since he gave me a really bad feeling and saw him taking pictures of kids. He left before I could confront him, so I gave his resume and a hard drive with the entire recording of his visit to the local police department. Edit, obligatory thank you for the award. Edit 2, thank you everyone. If you have any questions I'd be happy to answer, but it might take a bit for me to get through everyone. Thought of another, although it's an interview, being a dick in an interview. I work in a predominantly male trade. I'm a service lead, so I do know my trade. I may be on the younger side, but I've been working in this business for over 10 years. My male boss asked me to start and interview a guy before he got there as he's running late and the guy was going to be my employee anyways. The guy comes in, seems okay, at first. Then it goes downhill quickly. Asks me for coffee from Starbucks. Not office coffee. He wanted me to go fetch him Starbucks. Hell no. So that's not bad enough, so starts asking me interview questions, like trick questions. Starts trying to tell me I'm so smart, but in that tone. He's being just generally a dick. I'm done. I tell him that the interview is over. He says I'll wait for the boss to do my actual interview. He wouldn't leave. Boss eventually comes in and throws him out. We think he had to get interviews for unemployment or something, but actually didn't want to work. Why else would you intentionally tank your prospects so fucking hard? Edit. Thank you for all your comments and stories. Such a shame that mine isn't an isolated incident. I will note that there was never any follow-up by an unemployment office or such. My last paragraph was purely speculation. Thank you to everyone for reading my post. Stay safe out there. You matter. You make the world better by being in it, unless you are the guy in my story. Then what the fuck, dude? Have a great day. Thanks for watching. Don't forget to like, subscribe and comment Reddit Story Time for more Reddit stories.